New voices, new worlds, rising from your shelves. Adrian letting indie authors tell their stories themselves. Talent, passion, watch their legends bloom. Meet the authors changing every room. Welcome in, take a look at what they offer. You're not listening to the podcast between authors.
Hi.
Hello?
Hi. There we go. Took me a second to get the camera going.
Can't hear you.
Oh no.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? No.
Okay, you're good though.
Oh, I guess it just took a second.
Maybe it was my side. It might have been my side too. I don't know.
Woo, we did it.
Okay,
How
we're
are
good.
you?
Good. I'm doing great. Thank you for joining. You're cracking me up today with your posts for the live.
I like to keep it light and fun.
I know it was great.
Thanks.
So did you want to share it with a couple of people before we start, or
Oh
are
yeah,
you
I
good
did
to go?
have the copy here. I have Messy here, everybody. This is my book. It's a bisexual couple to throuple romance novel. It's very spicy. I give it like 4 out of 5 chili peppers. Thanks, Adrian, for letting me plug it up top. I was like out of habit.
No
I
worries.
have like my stuff here from when I usually go live.
Yeah, no worries. We'll talk a little bit more about that too.
Thank you. And I have my notebook here in case I want to like write stuff down so I don't forget like ideas and things I want to say. And my little
No worries.
planner for the year, like a nice bright yellow.
So for those that don't know what this is the live version of my podcast where I interview other indie authors, basically trying to get indie authors out there that you may not have seen, you may not have heard of, and just try to get more eyes on their work. So once I do this, I'm gonna load it up usually to my YouTube podcast, and then we'll be able to share that to everybody later. Whoever wasn't able to join, if they missed any of it, they can go back and watch that. So why don't you start with, for those that don't know you or haven't seen your work, why don't you explain who you are and introduce yourself?
Sure, Adrian. Also, just thank you so much for having me. This is so cool. And like, this is one of the best parts about being an indie author. And like, the indie author side of TikTok is like meeting readers and fellow writers. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Absolutely. I love it as well. So this is always great for me.
So a little bit about me. I write a lot of things. Corola De Rosa is my romance pen name. And I haven't really shared my real name on here, but I can tell you that like what I've written before this has mostly been poetry. Poetry was my first love. And then I got an MFA in creative writing, and my thesis was a screenplay. So like my background is varied, and I'm really proud of that, like that's how I came to romance. Like I was in a big reading slump, and I read a couple romance novels that got me back into reading, and I was like, I can do this. Like, so I think because of my background jumping around in different genres, it gave me like the audacity to just go for it. And I'm loving it. So yeah, as I said, Messy is a bisexual couple to throuple romance novel, just to like give everybody like a very top level about the book. And yeah, I just wrote the book that I wanted to see in the world. I'm trying to think of what else I can tell you about me. I'm also bi, I'm Latina, one of my main characters is Latina. I mean, has representation ever been more important than right now?
Very true. I mean, representation in general is a big thing. A lot of kids. I mean, when I say kids when we were kids, growing up, didn't have that representation. You didn't see Latino characters. You didn't see characters of color. You didn't see anything. You didn't see any, LGBTQ characters. You didn't see any handicapped characters. There's just nothing out there that was really shown. So a lot of kids grew up not seeing that, right? Not being part of what they were watching, reading, hearing, or anything like that. So that's something that's always, I feel, is always very important
Totally.
to have that, right? To have something of that in there. And, I try to do the same thing with the queens are almost always going to be Latina other than one in the future. Or I try to do some kind of backstory in there in my short stories. I did a version of La Llorona in my short story collection, but just little things like that. And for that reason, right? Just for that representation to get it out there. But
Absolutely.
it's interesting because poetry is actually one of my things as well, which was what I wrote the most of before I really started doing this. It was just something I always did. It's my kind of like go to, just like a palate cleanser, right? Just kind of cleaning the thoughts, all the voices in the head that you're going through as you're trying to write.
It's definitely the thing that comes to me the easiest usually. Like I often say that like even though my book is really light and fluffy, it was like painful to write because like I'm used to saying a lot in a very small space in my poetry. And so then writing like prose fiction, I would joke like I don't know how to make it to the other side of the page. Like I don't get it, because you really want to like elaborate and get into the characters' heads and like even though it's contemporary romance, there's an element of world building in every book, like just setting, period. So yeah, that's really cool that you do poetry too.
Yeah, I thought about at one point releasing a book because I have a bunch already written down and saved, but I have too many other things that I need to write to get. So at some point, maybe I'll go back to that. But there's just always things coming in and ideas coming in. So I haven't really gone to that point yet.
That's so real. Have you seen? I'm not trying to like derail our conversation, but just one of the things that I've been reflecting on lately, there's been this whole like nonsense about anti-intellectualism in romance. Have you been seeing this on TikTok, on Book Talk, and everything?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit. Yeah.
And like one of the things that is so frustrating about it is that like readers and writers, like most of us are in multiple genres. I mean, they shouldn't be. Am I allowed to curse, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say, like they shouldn't be shitting on romance anyway, but it's just like part of what bothers me about how they call it anti-intellectual is that like the other genres that these folks do consider quote unquote intellectual, like we're reading that too, we're writing that too. So like, I don't know, having this conversation about like poetry as two writers who write in completely different genres, like just for everybody watching out there, I know this is not like the people saying that stuff, but it makes you think,
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing when they talk about indie authors and traditionally published authors, and they automatically assume that there's more talent on that side, and there's a reason why it really isn't. I mean, when you go to query, you really have one person that has to make the decision, right? So one person choosing between a lot, it's not going to always pick the best, manuscript or the best story. They're going to pick what they're looking for at that time. And it doesn't mean you don't have the talent. It doesn't mean your story is not what should be out there. It just means that wasn't what they were looking for. And there's too many people that try to put everything in a compartment and saying, if you write this, it's crap. If you write this, it's crap. But if it's this, automatically that's more classical. That's higher literature. It's not the case, right? There's stuff in everything that's written, no matter the genre, no matter the subject matter. You're looking for the connection to that story. You're looking for the connection to the characters and the connection to the reader, right? What they're pulling from that. That's more important than, to me, technically, the structure of the story or how it's built out, how it's laid out. It's that connection. If you're making that connection to the reader and they're feeling the story or enjoying it, that's more important than anything else, I feel.
I am really open about this. When folks ask me like, how long did it take you to write Messy? It took me about a year in 2023, and I spent 2024 querying, and I got rejected by like 74 agents. It was wild. And I decided to take matters into my own hands. Obviously, I edited the book myself and I went ahead and released it. And like, to your point, yeah, you never know what they're looking for. And I think that definitely my opening pages needed reworked, and I did that. But I also think that maybe there was like concern about finding the audience for this book because of the like spicy content being kind of niche. But it's finding its audience. Like, again, to your point, like traditional and indie, one isn't necessarily better than the other. I think like a lot of people are now like just discovering new things in indie that they wouldn't in traditional. And now indie is being considered like a proving ground, sort of, for traditional
Very
publishing,
true.
which is interesting too. I don't know.
Yeah, it reminds me. I interviewed an author probably over a year ago, a year and a half ago, and he had written for years scripts for TV shows and movies and stuff. And he, had an idea he wanted to write, and it was basically something that had to do with, I think when he came back from the war or something. And he had queried it, and there was the agent that was taking it was like early 20s, and they kind of went back and forth, and he finally accepted it. But they're like, look, we really think right now it's really big peacocks, right? So we think you should have peacocks in this. And he's like, the story is downtown Philadelphia. What do you want me to do with peacocks in the story? And it always reminds me they just want to do what's trendy a lot of times. They want to hit what's hot right now, right? And what happens is you could have all these things that all these indie authors that are just extremely talented coming through with stories that should be out there, need to be out there. But if it's not what they're looking for, it's not that, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but it's not in that little box they're trying to find, it's going to get declined. So, I always want, young writers or early onset writers that are doing this to know that it has nothing to do with whether or not you're talented or good. It's just you have one person that needs to approve it, right? That you need to get through to get it through. And when you think about anything, whether it's music, TV shows, movies, there's no way to have everybody like it. There's always going to be something you absolutely love that somebody else goes, I couldn't stand that. That was horrible. And unfortunately, that may be the one that read your manuscript and you're not going to get through.
Totally. Oh, and it's funny too because like indie always like catches flack for like quality control, but I feel like just on the internet, I'm hearing that trad is letting things slip through the cracks now. Like they're not using their resources to their full advantage. They're swamped, they're understaffed, and like the editors are like it's not what it used to be, is what people are saying. I hate to be like, people are saying
right?
this, but that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah. They need to keep up. So what happens is when you need to keep up and you're falling behind, say on the number of books that are out there, you start pushing things through that maybe you wouldn't have before. And that really starts shrinking that argument that they're trying to come out with of how much more polished they are, because really they aren't. And I'm not saying they're not, they don't deserve to be out there, the ones that are.
Oh, no, not
it's
at
just
all.
you got to understand that doesn't mean that this side isn't, right? There's so many books that I've written from indie authors that I go, these books were incredible and they absolutely should be out there, more people seeing them, more people reading them. But that's the struggle for us as indie authors, is getting eyes on the work.
It is really interesting, and I feel like it's a double-edged sword, just to like get vulnerable for a second, because like I have loved going live. And I often say that like on my lives when I'm selling my book, I feel like I'm in my own little shop and I get to connect with readers, and like there is something so cool and magical about that. The vulnerable part is that there is this voice in the back of my head that's like, oh, like people don't really like messy. They just like interacting with you and like you're entertaining them on live. And so it is interesting. I don't know if you ever feel that, like with the indie side of things, because we're so involved and making such an effort to connect with readers. It's hard sometimes. It's just like, ooh, like if I would trad, like people would just like know about my book potentially. Like if I had gotten a big book deal, there would have been like a marketing push and like my personality would barely factor into the equation. I don't know. It's a strange experience.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I've gone into it knowing for the most part, not everybody's going to like what I write, right? Because
Yeah.
especially on the queen side of the stuff, I purposely write it over the top. I purposely push as far as I can on some of these things because these are monsters essentially, and I want the reader to understand how horrible they are, how sadistic they are, and not forget what that they have no boundaries, right? There's nothing they won't cross. There's no lines they're afraid to go over. And I know that's not going to be for everybody. I know there's a lot of people that are going to read it and just go, I can't do this. There's just way too much. So I came into this, knowing that I can't please everybody, knowing there are people that just weren't going to like it. So I feel confident when I release it for that reason because I know there's going to be some that just I can't do it. It's just not for me, right? So I already knew that going in. So maybe it helps me a little bit on that side because I just know it's not easy for a lot of people to get through some of the scenes I have in these books.
Yeah, I think that is just something we have to come to terms with as writers. Like, what we write is not supposed to be for everybody. I definitely feel that way about my book too, and like that's also why there's like a content warning at the beginning of my book, even though it is really light and fluffy because there's like food play. I'm like, hey, some people are gonna have like sensory issues with this. God forbid somebody has like a food scarcity trauma that like would make this like not fun for them, or if they have like an eating disorder or something, like they're probably not gonna want to read my book. So like even just that, like those folks are not going to want to read my book. Not to mention just other people who are like, they don't want to read open door romance. Like, I don't know. They don't want to read a bisexual couple story. Like, it is so much about finding our audience, like the people that are going to resonate with this thing. It is so specific, but they're out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Every author, I always like to say, doesn't matter what you write or what you're putting out there, you have an audience. Now the key is, can you find that audience, which is the hardest part of this, is can you find the audience? Because the audience is out there. It's just, can they find you? Can you find them? Is really the entire game of this.
Oh my God. Live on TikTok, like TikTok lives changed that for me so much. Like I was so stagnant when I was working on my TikTok account since like March of last year before my book even came out, and struggling. I felt like I could not break through 300 views. And even now my views are like not great, but for whatever reason, TikTok lives are working. Like I joined one of those like the content club with that Lana K's person. Mm-hmm. And it isn't even that, haven't even finished the course. Just randomly one day, I was in their Discord and people were talking about TikTok lives. And they were like, hey, did you know that the more you go live, the more the algorithm pushes out your live? And I was like, oh, interesting. So I gave it another try. And sure enough, like I started to sell books that way. So I think like experimentation is so key in trying to figure that out, like how to reach your readers, especially in like today's algorithm driven society. Like the algorithm, you never know like what the algorithm is going to do. You could do everything right and still like not get views.
Yeah, it is tricky because they change it quite often to lean it where they want to lean it. And that goes for everything, right? I mean, I've done online furniture sales for 25 years. It's the same thing. It's the same type of algorithm, right? You gotta find what that is. You gotta find that lane that'll get your stuff out there. And then sometimes it changes quickly. You gotta figure out, okay, what did they change? Because it's never explained to you. You got to find what that change was. It goes for everything. It doesn't matter if it's TikTok, if it's Instagram, or anything. The algorithm is always the algorithm, and it's just a matter of finding it, right? You're basically like you're going blindfolded and trying to find that lane. And once you find the lane, you just try to hold on to that lane and stay within it, because at some point it's going to change again.
I did not know that you're in online furniture sales, but we should talk because I'm looking for a couch and it's like psychological torture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've designed furniture for like 25 years doing this stuff.
Really?
So yeah,
That is so cool. I used to work for a friend of my dad who was a furniture designer like years and years ago. We're talking like 10 years ago down here in South Florida. We should talk. We should definitely talk more about this. That's so
yeah,
interesting.
definitely.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
definitely. Yeah. Oh, thank you for starting the Queens. Yeah, it's different than pretty much anything else out there, and I did that on purpose.
Gracie's here to say hi. I don't know if you can hear her meowing.
A little bit, but it's not loud.
She's very chatty. She's a Siamese mix. That's my baby. Do you have any pets?
So I don't. I used to have a dog when I was younger, but I don't have one right now. We talked a little bit about, some of the things that influence you and why you wrote what you wrote. Again, one of the things that I always like to talk about is an author's voice, right? And what makes up an author's voice. And really it's everything. It's your foundation, right? What inspires you, what you love, what you grew up with, what you enjoy as you're an adult. That's really what your author voice is. And again, which is why I always say there should not be competition between authors because every voice is different, right? They're not the same voice and it's never going to be the same exact story. So, when you think about that, what were some of the things that influence you? And when I mention that, I'm talking about it could be music, it could be TV, could be other books, but I mean, what are the things that really built your foundation of who you are and what you like to write?
I love that question. It makes me think of this class that really changed my trajectory as a writer when I was in college. I took this poetry course where we read several poetry collections and then we would emulate that poet's style. So, and it wasn't necessarily their style, actually. We had to emulate something about that collection. So it could be like thematic, it could be like a certain whatever tool that they use. And that always stuck with me. So, like I said, I had been in a reading slump. And for me, the book that like made me really want to write romance was Neon Gods by Katie Robert. So Katie Robert has had, I would say, the most impactful influence on my romance author voice. I absolutely love the way they write. I love how they do like first person perspective, and also Casey McQuiston, I would say. So in terms of like authors that really influence me, I love how those two authors write. I love that you mentioned music though too. I'm a huge Lady Gaga fan. And I also often joke that the two wolves inside me are Lady Gaga and System of a Down. And I feel like that says a lot about me as a person, like you can get a pretty clear picture of like what my politics are from that. And those are two really political artists. And like, even in my silly little romance novel, there's like a plot point about unionizing. So like, that's important to me too. And I would say like those artists have influenced me in that way that like, you can have like a dance pop banger and like make a political statement. And the same way you can do that, you can write like a light, fluffy romance novel and be like, bisexuals are real and like you should unionize at your workplace. But yeah, what about you?
My main foundation is horror, right? It's really what everything I do is based off of, which is why I write the dark erotic horrors, because my wife was like, try the romance, try dark romance, and I go, okay, I will, but I need to put this other layer in it because that's really what I love. It's the horror part of it, and the monster part. I think what really draws me into it is the characters, right? When you really think of the characters, the monster characters, or villains in general in stories, there's so much more substance to the character, right? There's so much more internal struggles, internal turmoil that's going on with those characters. And there's so much more you can do with those characters really when you think about it. And I I'm older than a lot of you guys that are on here. So for me, I loved all the old Universal classics. I loved when Hammer Studios redid those in the 70s and did their versions of it, which I loved that. I loved their version saying, look, you know this story, but here's our take on it, which I've always loved when anybody does that, whether it's music, movies, or something, when they do their version, their take of something. I've always enjoyed that. And I've just always liked the horror element of it, right? Another thing that I've done is, especially for my queens, is I always try to write strong female characters because I came from a family of all females, right? It's all sisters, all nieces.
Heck
Um,
yeah.
and then I won't go too much into it for here, but my wife and I had lost our daughter during pregnancy after a lot of fertility struggles on that side, which is really kind of what started a lot of my writing. But for that reason, I always want strong female characters, right? I want to have strong representation for females, which is why my stories, all those morally gray characters, pitch black characters, are always going to be the females, always the queens of my stories. They're strong. They're the ones in power. They're the ones that are going to take care of it. I write children's books, which always sounds odd when you think of what I write with the queens, horror, and then the children's books. But in the children's books, it's the same thing. I have a series where it's the little sister that's always the hero because, again, representation where you don't need the male to come save you. You can do this on your own, right? So I always want that strong female character. And I think it goes back to, when I think about horror, the final girl, right? The one that's always the one that survives at the end, that strong female character that kills Jason for the moment because he's coming back in episode 82, or any of those characters. There's always the final girl that is the strong female character that can beat that villain, right? The monster. And it's the only genre that really does that, right? That really gives you those strong female characters out there, right? Marvel and those, they have them, but they never push them out there, right? Horror is the only one that really gives you that one strong female character. And I think that might be another thing of why I'm drawn to that, because I always want to have that represented in my stories.
That is such a powerful why, though, Adrian. I'm really sorry for your loss. That is so
Thank
powerful,
you.
though. Like, why you write these strong female characters. And also, the fact that you write children's books is amazing. Like, you contain multitudes. We have somebody.
Everybody's always surprised because it's such polar opposites of what's inside those books.
We have somebody in the chat saying, "Why is she looking at my man like that? He's mine, sister." And I just want to say, relax. I'm married. I'm just active listening. I don't know who that is. Do you know that person?
No.
Oh my God, TikTok Live is always so wild.
So yeah, I mean that's my voice, right? That's what I come from. And going back to you talking about music, same thing. I mean, I love swing, I love blues, Rage Against the Machine,
Hell yeah.
System of a Down, White Zombie, Rob Zombie, all those, Marilyn Manson. I'm all over the place, right? I love old 70s R&B. So, when you look at my playlist, they're everywhere. And it's interesting because I'm putting the two together, or actually the three together, because I'm going to write a horror book that's going to be zombies, right? Which goes to my horror side, but it's going to take place during the Zoot Suit riots, which again is going to have some of the Latino culture in the background of what was going on at the time. And I'm absolutely going to make sure a lot of the old swing and music from that time is going with it. I actually started a playlist to go along with that book. And again, that's how you build your voice. It's just all these things that have influenced you kind of, work their way into your art.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned playlists. I recently like rediscovered the power of having like a good writing playlist for a specific project and like building it and letting that be part of the creative process. Sometimes people ask me like, how do I get rid of writer's block? And I mean, I struggle with writer's block, but something that has helped me in the past is not just listening, but also watching the music videos to like a Lady Gaga music video, like that, like something that's like, wow, I love being alive at the same time as her. Like the Judas music video or the Mary the Night music video, that always just makes me feel like creatively energized and gets the juices flowing for sure.
Yeah, I think you know what it is. It's the reset. When you start running into that block side, it's the reset you got to do. So, one of the things that I don't get it very often because I write too many different things at the same time. So I write in between all these genres at the same time. I'll have a couple of chapters of horror being written, a couple of chapters of the erotic horror at the same time going. I may be writing a children's book in the back end of it. So I hop around a lot, and I think that helps me because I'm constantly resetting and not really staying in the mindset of the one story. The poetry is another thing that I've always helped. If I feel a little stuck, I just automatically will try to write something on that side, and it just seems to reset you again, right? It takes you out of that moment that you're kind of locked up on, and lets you reset and come back in, and that's always helped as well.
I'm so jealous of you. I wish I could do that. And maybe I could, but I usually like sure I have projects that I want to work on that are kind of in the back burner or I've like I'm ideating on, but I don't usually have like multiple drafts going at once. It's tough, but I get what you're saying. Like you keep the momentum going that way.
Yeah,
Are you
I mean,
you're
it's
like a
just
mid writer maybe?
it's just my head because I can compartmentalize things. I've done it. I do it with work as well. I just can put things in sections and focus on this and then move to this. So it's just the way my mind's structured that helps me do that. But technically, and I kind of be interested to hear your part of this. But technically, when I'm writing something, to me it feels like the entire story is already there in my head, and I'm putting it on paper. I always feel like it's more dictation than anything else. It's not me trying to find where I want to take it because I let it go where it wants to go. I let it tell me where that story should go and where it wants to go, rather than me saying, "Oh, I want this to happen towards the end." I just say, you show me where this is going to go by just following through the story, and I think that's helped me too because I don't try to force anything. I don't come in with, this is start, middle, end. I say, here's a scene, and let's just go from there and figure out what's happening around it.
That's awesome. I'm definitely like more of a pantser in the sense of like I'm figuring things out as I go, but I don't usually feel like I'm dictating like what's in my head. Instead, it's very much like writing. I'm like scratching and clawing to like discover something. It's hard. And then once I have the thing in my head, there is usually again like it's painful for me to write prose fiction. Like that discrepancy between like once I have something in my head and then like describing it and trying to like get it on the page and translate it is a struggle for me. Like as much fun as the scene might be, and like I do definitely reach a flow state sometimes, like there are good days. There are definitely I don't want everybody to think like, wow, Corolla hates writing. That's not what I'm saying. But it's hard. It's definitely hard. And man, I'm losing my train of thought, but yeah, I'm definitely a pantser. And I struggle to like figure out what the heck to write. And recently I decided that my second book, like the ending is going to be different than what I thought. But I also accept that, like, and I accept the brain blast I remember what I wanted to say. Brain blast happening as we speak. The other thing that has helped me a lot is improv. So I was doing improv comedy when I lived in Pittsburgh, probably for like 5 years. And that really helped me in writing the first book because like there were a few things missing as I was like approaching like the 3/4 of the way, I would say, mark of that first draft. And in improv, we did long form improv. So it's like you find what the game is and then you try to play that game as hard as possible. And one of the forms that we studied was called the Herald. And the rule for this that you like the main thing you have to remember when you're performing a Herald is like everything that has been set up is what's going to help you later. So like you have all the answers already. If you created a problem, like everything that you said by the end, like you have laid out everything so that you can, with your imagination, just pull from something you already did and like let it resolve itself, make it resolve itself. And so having that, in my back pocket, like at the back of my mind helps my writing a lot. Just saying to myself, like, wait a minute, what have I already written that I can like extrapolate from? Like, I have already like laid breadcrumbs for myself probably without even noticing, like, let me go back. Let me see like how this character was feeling. Let me see like what their problems were. And like, oh, thank you. That's so nice. Look at that. You got it. Oh my God. Thank you. Those remind me of Sailor Moon. But yeah, improv has also helped me a lot with my writing process.
Yeah, you should definitely lean on it a lot more, because again, that's your voice, and it's interesting because there was another author that I had interviewed a long time ago that he owned a comic book shop, and in his comic book shop he used to do D&D games, and he would have to come up with characters and little storylines on the spot for the games. And he had sold the shop and decided to start writing, and he wrote a book with multiple point of views. I think it was like 10 or 15 point of views, and that's
Whoa.
not easy. And everybody would ask him, and he's like, I had no problem doing it. It felt normal to me. And when he thought about it, it really went back to the D&D games because he was coming up with characters and backstories on the spot, and like, this is this character, this is what's going on, and kind of just doing it right there, that when he went to write it, it felt normal for him to have all those different character point of views. He was able to switch into each of them. And again, it goes back to that, to your foundation, your foundation with the improv, his foundation with those games. It builds what your voice is. So lean on that, right? Lean into it when you are having an issue or you're thinking about something, or maybe go in at some point in the future when you're writing a book already thinking about that. Like, I'm going to use this structure to kind of go through it and see what happens, right? See where it takes you. You may find that is your voice, where you just start writing and it just starts moving for you.
Yeah, Messy was my first book and I learned a lot of lessons. And now this second book that I'm working on for the series, Indulgent, is teaching me some new lessons. I feel like the lesson I learned most recently is like, it's good when I create a problem for myself as a writer. Like I mean that sounds obvious when I say it like that, but like I had this idea. The idea was gonna have to like was gonna make me have to go back in and like kind of change some things, or like build on what I already had. And it opened a can of worms, but that's what you want, right? Like that's what keeps things interesting for the reader. So yeah, that's a lesson that I'm learning right now. And like sometimes I have to just stop and remind myself, like, I'm pretty new at this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, with almost anything anybody does, you just get better at it the more you do it, right? Like you say, you learn lessons, you start learning techniques or things that you learned from the first book, and say, oh, I remember this made this easier when I did it this way, or when I thought about it this way, it kind of flowed a lot easier. And you'll get better, right? And it doesn't say that the first ones, again, that's the thing. It's not saying the first one's bad. It's just you
No.
get better at it, right? The more you do it, you get more seasoned at it, and learn a lot of things, not only about your writing, but about yourself and how you should go through the process.
The people that I admire most are perpetual students. Like the teachers that I love the most are perpetual students, and that's how they carry themselves. And that's how I try to be, is like, there's always something that I can learn. Like, even like 10 years from now, or like after I've written 25 books, like I'm going to still be learning and experimenting. And like, that's part of it. That's the point.
Yep. Yeah, you should never stop learning, right? There's too many things out there to discover, to learn. You can't be, and I don't want to say closed-minded, but you can't be like, I know what I need to know, right? There's just too much stuff out there, too much stuff in the world, that you don't know, that you don't know, you don't know, right? And that's the thing. You should always be willing to learn something new, to explore. Even think about books, explore other genres, explore other types of writing, because you may find something in there you really like. And honestly, really when you think about it, no matter what genre we write in, most of our stories are always multi-genres, right? It's not always a straightforward romantasy or straightforward horror. There's things in there. There's thrillers in there, or maybe comedy at some point. There's a lot of different things that are in those stories. So, a lot of people don't understand they are writing in other genres. They just haven't leaned into it yet.
Totally. Yeah, there can definitely be gradients, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So let's we talked a little bit about it, but let's give everybody a little more about the book, and only what you want to share. I don't want you to give away too much, but talk a little bit more about the book, kind of what it's about, and give them a good idea of, for those that haven't seen it or haven't read it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I have kind of a spiel that I almost recite at this point. So again, this is the book. For those of you who are maybe just listening, although I know you said you put this up on YouTube, if you're like not watching, the book is really pretty, and it's pink with a purple cake on the cover. So Messy is the first book in my Food Freaks series. I'm working on book 2, as I said, which is called Indulgent. The first character we meet is Vic. You do get all 3 points of view from our throuple. So also for people just joining, just very top level, Messy is a bisexual couple to throuple romance novel featuring decadent food play in the spicy scenes. So Vic, she is a badass roller derby babe, and she just got her heart broken by the guy she thought was the love of her life. So she's trying to distract herself from the heartbreak, and she's throwing herself into any and every fling she possibly can. She's in full hedonism mode, and that's how she ends up on Food Freaks, which is the name of this app, this site for people who like to get freaky with food. While she's there, she meets Gabby and Darius. They've been together for 7 years. And I always like to mention that they're really happy together, because I don't want people to think that this is like one of those situations where their relationship is on the rocks and they're like, let's just open things up. Maybe that'll save us. It's not that at all. But they do strike a fun bargain to try each other's fantasies. And that's how they end up on Food Freaks, where I already revealed they meet Vic. It's supposed to stay casual, but it doesn't. They fall in love. And you'll have to read the book to find out how that happens. There is a happily ever after. I always like to mention that, because like I know my romance people, they expect that happily ever after, as do I. And you get it, I promise. But they got to work for it. Hello.
So I know you said you're working on book 2. Do you plan on this being multiple, or is it just going to be 2 books?
It's going to be 3, at least. I had planned for it to just be a trilogy, and I like don't want to get anybody's hopes up who maybe have read Messy and are like, oh my God, could we get more than 3 books? But I am toying with the idea of additional novellas down the line, potentially. But definitely 3 in this series, yeah.
Okay. And do you plan on doing that, like is book 2 planned for this year, maybe 3 next year, or some space in between?
Book 2 will be this year, for sure. I'm like 30,000 words into draft 1. I was feeling really ambitious towards the end of last year and starting to think like, oh my God, could I do both books this year? I don't think that's feasible for me. Like, I got to be realistic. And I actually started listening to this book called Finish and it's about finishing your projects. Like that's literally what it's about. And in the very first or second chapter, the author, his name is John Acuff, for anybody who wants to check out the book. I'm listening to the audiobook on Libby. But he talks about cutting your goals in half and how that can actually help you achieve your goals. And I was like, damn, I needed to hear that because like writing and publishing one book in a year is more than enough. So definitely Indulgent will come out this year, and like I already feel better taking that pressure off myself. Book 3 is in the works. I'm definitely like ideating on it, and that one's going to be called Voracious.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another question I usually like to ask is, you've probably read other genres, or again, maybe like other genres in movies or stuff like that. Is there a genre that at some point you want to attempt or maybe think about trying, but you're like, I'm not ready for that yet, or I need to get through this series and then I'll start thinking about doing that?
I'm obsessed with this question. Yes. So, well, I told you that I write poetry. So I will mention that my poetry collection got picked up by a small press, and I'm really excited about that. I don't know when it's going to come out. The press is really small and they're very swamped. But what I want to write is I read a couple of really great, like weird girl lit fic novels, as they call them, in 2025. I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation and Sky Daddy. Oh my God. I was like, I really want to write something like this. I don't have an idea yet. Like, I'm sure it'll hit me like a freight train one of these days.
Yeah.
But I really, really, really want to write something like that. Those books like knocked my socks off, and they were so interesting and fun. And another thing that I would like to maybe write one day is like, I mean, I guess like My Year of Rest and Relaxation is kind of this, like, so it doesn't have to be like weird girl lit fic, but just like literary fiction in general really like appeals to me. Like I would love to write something like Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer, where he's just like in Paris, like bumming around. Like I would love to write something like that. Something really like introspective and about the human condition and like kind of effed up. That appeals to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked that question because, most of all of us have read different things, right? Different things growing up in terms of what you've liked. Your likes don't always stay the same. They change sometimes over time. And I've always liked that question because there may be something that you like, I really want to do this. It just hasn't been the time yet to do it. And that's why I've always liked that. Is there something in the back that you've thought of? And sometimes a lot of times they haven't thought of it yet, but it's a good question to ask yourself. Is there something, your Mount Everest, that you want to climb at some point and try, right? Attempt.
What about you? You write children's books, you write horror, erotic horror. What's like your answer to that question? I'm so curious.
So my answer is something I'm going to do. And when I was growing up as a kid, I read the Tomoe Gozen series, which was a trilogy. And this was back in 82, I think was the first book that came out. And that's what got me, right? That trilogy was really everything for me. And it was, a lot of the things that I truly love, which was Japanese culture and history. There's dragons, there's magic, there's demons, there's some scenes where there's horror. It's just like everything in one, right? And it's one of the stories that I always felt, you know, probably would have been a great movie trilogy, kind of like a Lord of the Rings type of thing, if someone ever would have done it. Because it's just amazing series, an amazing trilogy that's always stuck with me, since I was a kid when I read it. And for that reason, I one of my queens will be Japanese, and it will be the only one that's a non-Latina, because I do want to honor that trilogy that really meant a lot to me and my reading, and that's kind of what I would do. But it's still staying within my horror, the erotic horror, but letting me dabble in the Japanese culture, history, because I've read, I don't even know how many things on Japanese history, I don't even know how many movies of traditional classic Japanese movies. It's kind of part of my foundation because anybody who watches classic Japanese movies, not necessarily, everybody thinks of the samurai ones and stuff. When you really watch the dramas and all of them, there's some amazing, beautiful movies. They're all sad. There is no happy endings in any Japanese movies. That's the structure of their movie, right? So everybody dies at the end. Everything is lost at the end. There's nothing happy usually at the end of these movies, even as beautiful as they are, and the stories. There's no happy ending at the end of it, and that's kind of creeped into my thing because a lot of my horror, I like writing characters that people start to like, and I'll take them away. I'm just like, I'm sorry, they're not gonna make it because it happens, right? It's something that is going to happen in that type of actual reality of what's going on, right? In my zombie books, I'm someone that hates seeing any type of violence against children or kids being mistreated in movies. I hate it, right? I hate seeing it. It's just I don't like to see it. But in the zombie thing, I had to write some kids and children being killed and what happened because that's reality of the story, right? So did I enjoy it? No, but if you don't, you're not true to the story. You're not true of what that reality is. So you kind of have to put it in there, as hard as that is sometimes.
You're made of tough stuff, Adrian. That is tough. Oh my
Well, I
God.
mean, as you know, some of these times when you're writing some scenes, they're not easy, right? There's things when you write, even if you think of poetry, there's things you write sometimes that are healing in a way because you let something out, right? And it's always the just say it out loud, and sometimes that helps. Is it gonna take it away? No, but it helps, right? And it goes back again to why I talk about the loss of our daughters. There's a lot of people struggling through that, right? And not everybody can be the voice of that or can say that, but a lot of people do want to know they are not alone in that, right? They didn't struggle alone and things like that. And you have to sometimes fight through those things and get it out there. Does it heal everything? Absolutely not, but sometimes that helps in the healing process.
Powerful. That's really powerful, Adrian.
Is there or was there any scenes, and again, it doesn't have to be something painful like that, but was there any scenes? I know you talked a little bit about some scenes being difficult to write. Were there some scenes or some aspects of the story that you struggled with for whatever reason, whatever that was, how you wanted to get it out, or just maybe the emotional part of it or the structure of it? Were there some that you kind of struggled going through?
Yeah, I would say structuring the plot was the hardest part for me. Ultimately, it is a really character-driven plot. Um, it's not like action-packed or anything, but that was the hardest thing for me was like finding the conflict that as like I love how you described like what is the reality of that world like that you're building, that you're writing, and figuring out the reality of what problems my characters would have and like what conflicts they would have, because I had so much fun writing like the fun stuff. Like I that's what I want to write is like everything's great, everybody's hooking up, it's hot, it's a good time, but like okay, and what else? Like there has to be a conflict, there has to be obstacles. Um and so that was the hardest thing, and also like trusting. So like one of the central, I don't want to give too much away, but like one of the central conflicts is kind of like I think it's a little odd or like specific, I guess. Like, and to me, it's something that it was like I was insecure about this, like what I decided, because I'm like, are people going to think this is dumb? Like, and because it had, okay, I will share that it has to do with like the dog of one of the characters. And like, I have a dog that I love very much. And like, I know that people who are pet lovers, like, that's like very important to you, you know? So like when there's like a problem, an issue with like your pet, I do feel like that is something people can relate to and is like a real problem. But I worried also like that people would be like, what the heck is this? You know? So I just had to like, believe that A, like you said, like this is true for this world. And B, trust my readers and like trust them that
Yeah.
they'll like come along for that unique ride of like this breakup, the dog in the middle of this breakup. It's giving Legally Blonde a little bit, like
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I come across it probably a lot more because of the Queen stuff. Because again, some of the scenes are pretty rough sometimes, and you have to make it detailed because there's a reason for it, right? And it's not. I don't put it in just to put it in. I mean, unfortunately, you have a lot of SA that happens and things like that in these stories because it leads to something. There's a reason why sometimes the queens are going to do some of the things they do, right? There's a reason why they're attacking or just really destroying some of these men later on because of something that happened. And it's not just the scene's not ever thrown in just to throw it in, but I know how triggering that can be, right? Which is why I always put all those things in as much detail as I can on the trigger warnings because it's rough, right? It's not something, especially if it's somebody's actual trigger. You don't want anybody going into something like that not being prepared for it, right? Not knowing that it's going to happen because it's never something I want to do to anybody is blindside them with something like that, right? And
Yeah.
because the scenes are rough, they're not easy to get through. They're not easy to write, but again, it's part of that world, and if you don't be true to it, it really takes away the core of what that reality is.
I think that it's great that you're intentional about it. Like you're aware that like it is triggering for people. You're not like, oh well, if you can't read it, don't read it. Like I'm not putting trigger warnings. I don't care. Like you're
Yeah.
doing everything right.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back. We talked a little bit earlier, the connection, right? And the connection for everybody, it doesn't matter if it's music, right? It's the connection that you're as you're listening to something, what you feel when you listen to the music, the connection when you're watching certain movies or TV shows, that connection to the characters that you get. It's the same thing in a book. You want them to have that connection to the story and be in it, right? Just be immersed in it. And something like that can just take them right out of it because they may not be. Hold on, let me just make sure this doesn't quit on us.
Don't
They
quit
may
on
not be able to
anything.
recover from something like that. And you don't want to ever do that to anybody. So I always, whenever I talk about my stuff, I go, look, this is much darker, much more sadistic than anything you've probably read or seen. Just be aware this is not normal dark romance, not even pitch black. This is something different, right? And that's why I said at the beginning, I know there's a lot of people that are not going to be able to read it. They're not going to be able to enjoy it because it's just not going to be meant for everybody. It's difficult.
I'm so intrigued. Like, I definitely want to give your books a try. I haven't read them yet. But I'm scared. Like, I don't know. But that's beautiful. Like, we can still be friends, even if I can't get through some of the harder scenes,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my that one thing that brings me joy all the time is everybody when they finally read, really Camila, the first one, Temptation. Whenever they do like a review or something on TikTok, it's always this is my face, and it's always like this as they were reading the entire thing because that's what I wanted. I wanted you to not know what she was going to do because she can do whatever she wants, right? She has no limits. She has no boundaries and she's not about to start, right? She's going to do whatever she desires, whatever she craves, no matter how sadistic or dark it is. And at some point you start realizing, yeah, I need to just expect anything to happen because she's going to do it.
Damn. I mean, how could I not read that? That sounds awesome.
That's my quick elevator pitch to try to get somebody to read it.
I love it. Beauty in the Library said I was scared to read them too, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it's the I think when you think of Pitch Black, right? You have that. You have a lot of that in there, but it's the horror aspect. I think is what throws everybody off. The gore that's happening along with the spice that you're just not expecting. Because again, Camila is a demon, so she's going to do some stuff. Alondra, when you read that one, is a vampire empress, so she's going to do some stuff. And then when
She's
my
gonna do
Medusa
some
comes
stuff.
out in a couple of weeks, you know, they just can do things, right? So you need to expect almost anything to happen because they are going to do it.
Oh man, they can do things. That sounds really exciting. Medusa, I love that. That's coming out soon.
Yeah, I wanted to release it by Christmas, but my wife and I are finishing it up. My wife does a lot of the formatting and the graphics and stuff for me, so we
Aw.
kind of do a lot of that together. She does all the packaging for them, so she comes up with her ideas for the packaging. So we do both all these things together when we release these. So we're still finalizing because I always offer an art card with it. I offer bookmarks, stickers. So there's always a bunch of things that comes along with the book when you purchase it. I like to include.
That's really cool. I love that you guys are like teamwork makes the dream work. That's the best.
Hmm.
I need to level up my package situation. Mine is just the book right now, but I definitely want to do more. And I think now that I've sold some copies, I can take the leap soon and like include fun things.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to come up with the different things to include with there. I mean, she changes up the packaging for each of the books, so each has their own unique packaging. Um, all of my bookmarks are double sided, so you get two forms of the character or two ideas from the book. I try to have a bunch of different stickers that get tossed in there, whether they're book related or they're just, erotic horror related, just things along the side. But I just like that whole package to be able to give to the reader that just makes it interesting when they receive everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that so much.
So your book, I know you sell it on TikTok, right? And is it available everywhere or available also on the normal guy?
The paperback, yes, the paperback is available like pretty much everywhere online. I am like struggling with whether or not to put it back on KU. I had it on KU for like 3 months, and Amazon, I just cannot stand Amazon, but it's also like a necessary evil. So the ebook is,
Unfortunately, I know.
yeah, I guess I probably should be careful with how I say things. I'm sorry, I don't want to mess up your life. But
No worries.
yeah, I'm like I just forgot for a second. Sorry. But yeah, for anybody listening, watching, the ebook is available in the rainforest and nowhere else right now. So I haven't like fully made the switch after it was on KU. It had previously been available on my website, the ebook. Like I had done book funnel for that. But there's the whole exclusivity thing with KU. So I'm really strongly considering putting it back on KU, but we'll see. But yeah, I sell it on my website. For anybody who is concerned about like shipping costs, that's the place to go because I can actually do media mail. Unlike TikTok Shop, I just go with whatever the prices are on like shipping for TikTok Shop.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's interesting though. I have done all my best selling through TikTok, really, and some on my website, but really TikTok's where I sell the majority of my books because, like you said, the other guy, it is what it is. You just never know what's happening on that side, and there's too many things you have to do to try to get your book noticed, so it's harder.
even on that side of things, the sales that I make are through TikTok because people just come in my live and they're like, "Is your book on KU?"
Yeah,
So it was still from TikTok anyway.
yeah.
That's how things are
I mean,
going for me too.
that's why I leave it on KU is because, again, because of what these books are, I'd rather somebody read it on there to see and know what it is rather than purchasing it and going, wait a minute, this is much more than I expected. I prefer somebody at least try to read it there and say, okay, yeah, I'm kind of into this. I'm willing to get the stuff because again, if you purchase it, like you say, from TikTok or my website, you get all the goodies, right? You don't get any of the goodies on the big guy when you buy it from that side.
There have been one or two people who read my book over there and then bought like a trophy for their shelf. And that was like even sweeter. I was just like, oh my God, like you wanted a trophy of my book. Like that's so special.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've loved you coming on here so we can chat books like this and talk about this. And for those again, I know she mentioned it a little, but she does go live pretty consistently. I think you do it several times a week. I think, right?
Yeah, it's helping me to not have a schedule, honestly, Adrian. Like I thought about like, oh, should I have like a consistent schedule? But because like I like to keep the energy up and everything, I'm just like, it's kind of whenever I feel like it. But sometimes that means like close to every day. Like this week was a little bit nuts because I was traveling and stuff, but yeah, it's a good time. But thank you so
Yeah,
much for
definitely.
having
I
me.
mean,
It's been really fun.
absolutely. I mean, if you ever want to come on again, just let me know. We can definitely do this again. I
Oh,
my biggest struggle is I'm California, and everybody's getting ready to go to sleep by the time I get home from work. So it's not it's hard for me to find times really to do this with other authors because there's so many more on the East Coast, and it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock by the time I'm home to do some of these things.
yeah, I am mostly a night
Hi,
owl. I
Lisa.
did. Yeah. Hi, Lisa. I'm setting Lisa hearts. I'm going to stick around. Y'all are talking after this, right?
Uh, I can a little bit if you want. Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't know. I just thought you and Lisa were talking. Or is that another time?
No, we were probably going to do something another time as well because she couldn't only do a little bit of time the last time we did it, so we
Oh,
do want to
gotcha.
do it again so she can go longer. I mean, honestly, if you guys both want to come on one of these at the same time, we can do that as well.
Oh, that would be cool. Did
But
Lisa
yeah,
leave?
usually I'll stop these because I want to load it up to YouTube, and so I want to make sure it's just the interview for your books on that side, and it's just not
Yeah.
us like just talking after.
Oh, no worries at all. No worries at all. I totally forgot what we were talking about because I got derailed saying hi to Lisa. But yeah, anyway, thank you for having me, Adrian. This was lovely.
Yeah,
And yeah, I
actually,
would love to do
I've
it
loved
again.
having you on here, getting to talk to you because we really hadn't up to that point, other than just a couple of messages talking about doing this. But yeah, definitely, I mean, message me later if you want to talk about the furniture thing or let me know what you're thinking and I can give you some ideas or what you should look for, honestly, on that side.
Thank you. Because like I said, shopping for a couch is painful. So I will be messaging you about that for sure.
Yeah. And thank you everybody who's watched tonight. Definitely give her a follow if you're not currently doing it. Check out her book, and I'll probably have her on here again. We'll talk some more. If not about our books, just about writing in general and what we like.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Adrian. Take care.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you all for joining.